My wife's infidelity was accidentally discovered by a 7-year-old. She replied, "You're too insecure to handle a real woman's needs. Maybe if you were more like James, I wouldn't have cheated." Her relatives added, "She's young and confused. You should be thankful she chose you to raise the baby." So, I divorced her and left her with nothing. Hey, Reddit. I never imagined I'd be blogging here, but I really don't know what else to do right now. Sorry if this is long, but I have to say all of this. A little bit of background. I'm 31 years old and have been married to my wife Addison, who is 28 years old, for 3 years. We're both relatively typical people. Nothing strange about us. I'm the manager of an accounting department, and she used to work for a marketing company. She quit last year to stay home and try to become pregnant. We tried for more than a year and finally got the happy news approximately 4 months ago. I was very happy about it. I started making plans for the nursery and downloaded almost every baby app on my phone. So, every other Sunday we go to her folks' place for dinner. Addison likes spending time with them, even though they're not my favorite people. I can deal with that because her mom makes wonderful food and her dad just speaks about his job at the bank for half of dinner instead of the whole time. On Sunday, we'll be doing the same thing we always do. Serena, her cousin, was there with her 7-year-old son, Tyler. Things were going as usual. We're at their dining room table. Addison and I are sitting across from each other. Tyler is next to me, picking at his mac and cheese. Tyler suddenly looks up at me and says, "Uncle Harry, why are you taking care of James's baby?" While her mom is still talking. I swear to God, everyone at the table stopped talking like someone had struck a mute button. Her mom stopped talking in the middle of a sentence with her lips still open. Her dad stopped moving and stood there like a statue with his fork halfway to his mouth. Tyler even seemed to know he had said something incorrect since he went back to stirring his mac and cheese. I was perplexed when I looked at Tyler since I had no idea who James was. Addison never said anything about a James. I turned to Addison and saw that her face had gone absolutely white, as if all the blood had drained out of it. "What did you say, friend?" I asked Tyler. I was trying to keep my voice normal because everyone was looking at me. James's child. Mommy and Aunt Addison were talking in the kitchen earlier, and Mommy stated that Aunt Addison is having James's kid. Uncle Harry thinks it's his. Somehow, the silence got worse. It seemed like Serena wanted to crawl beneath the table and hide. Her parents were staring at their plates like they were the most interesting things in the world all of a sudden. Addison began to laugh at that point, but it wasn't the kind of chuckle she usually did. It was this strange, phony laugh that didn't sound right. "Harry, he's 7 years old. Kids say the strangest things. You really think a child is more trustworthy than your wife?" I knew something was wrong because of the way she stated it and how everyone was gazing at each other. You could feel the tension in the room. Tyler seemed perplexed by all the strange things adults were doing and went back to eating. I got up from the table. I had to go home. Addison told me to sit back down and finish dinner, but her voice was unsteady and frightened. Her mom asked me where I was going, but she didn't seem natural at all. I informed them I was going home and took my keys off the counter. Addison came with me to the front door and asked where I was going. She also said we wanted to talk about what occurred. I told her I needed some time to consider. She continued telling me I was being silly for trusting what a 7-year-old stated, but I could see it in her eyes. The fear and the shame. She knew exactly why I was leaving and what Tyler meant by what he said. I got in my car and drove away. I could see her watching me go from the back of the car. I wanted to turn around and walk back, act like nothing had occurred, but Tyler's words kept coming back to me. James's kid. The drive home was arguably the longest 15 minutes of my life. I continued going over the whole thing in my head. The way everyone acted, the way Addison looked, and the way Serena couldn't look me in the eye. When I arrived home, I just sat on the couch and stared at the wall. I began to think about things I hadn't truly thought about previously. Addison had been acting strange about the pregnancy lately. I imagined she'd be more enthused about something we'd been working on for so long. She had been using her phone more and without telling anyone who she was texting. Things that didn't seem essential at the time, but now seem like warning signs. I heard her car in the driveway about half an hour later. She rushed in, looking quite worried. "We need to talk about what happened back there, Harry." I said I don't want to chat right now, but you can't just walk away. It was awkward. My folks think we're experiencing issues right now. Could be that we are having troubles. She kept asking me to talk about it, but I told her I needed some time to think. She finally gave up and went to bed at 11 o'clock. I lay on the couch all night thinking about everything. Our relationship, the pregnancy, and who the hell James is. I suppose I'm crazy for even thinking that a 7-year-old's odd comment may be accurate, but I can't help but feel that Tyler was just naively repeating something he heard. The next morning was arguably the most uncomfortable morning of our whole relationship. We normally gather at the kitchen table and speak about our plans for the day over coffee before I go to work. Just the usual married couple things, nothing big. But she stayed in bed until I was gone. They didn't even say goodbye. While I was getting dressed, I could hear her moving around upstairs, but she never came down. I was utterly worthless at work all day. Kept staring while thinking over what Tyler had said. Dave, who works with me, sits in the cubicle next to mine. He kept asking if I was okay because I looked awful. I wanted to tell him what was going on. But how do you even do that? "Hey Dave, I heard from a second grader that my wife is pregnant and it might be with another guy's baby." When you look at it that way, it sounds really crazy. Dave is a nice person, but he's the kind of guy who would probably tell his wife and then she'd tell her friends, and before you know it, half the neighborhood would know my business. Around 3 p.m. I left work early because I couldn't stand it any longer. I told my supervisor I was sick, which wasn't exactly a lie. Every time I thought about the scenario, I felt like I was going to throw up. I was going over what I was going to say the whole way home. How do you talk about something like this? You can't just ask your pregnant wife if the baby is really yours. When I stepped in, Addison was sitting on the couch watching a reality show. A dating show where people cheat on each other in tropical places. She seemed surprised to see me home early, and maybe even a bit scared. I sat down across from her and said what I had to say. "I want us to do a DNA test." The response was quick and strong. She leaped up from the couch as if I had just told her the house was on fire. "Are you really serious? You want to get a DNA test because of what a 7-year-old said?" "Yes, I do." She started to go on and on about how I was being rude and stupid. But this is what truly bothered me. She didn't act hurt or puzzled as I thought she would. She was behaving angry and defensive, as if she were mad that I had brought it up instead of being surprised that I didn't trust her. "What's the problem if the baby is mine?" I asked her. "You do it right away to show me I'm incorrect." "Huh?" But she said no. Claimed it was rude and she wasn't going to listen to anything I said. That's when I knew for sure that an innocent individual wouldn't say no to a paternity test. A person who is not guilty gets angry for about 5 minutes and then decides to do it only to make their point. By not doing it, she practically said she was guilty. She started ranting about trust and how I was ruining our marriage for no reason. But even though she was going on and on, she never really offered to take the test. They just kept insisting I was wrong without being able to show it. "Who is James Addison?" She stopped talking and just stared at me with a look like a deer in headlights. I learned everything I needed to know from that reaction. She knew exactly who James was and why Tyler had brought him up. "I don't understand what you're saying." After a few minutes of awkward silence, she tried to change the subject and said that James was an old college boyfriend who had been contacting her lately. Tyler must have heard her chatting to Serena about it and gotten the wrong idea. But I could tell she was making it up right then and there. She couldn't look me in the eye while relaying the story, and it didn't make sense. "Then show me the text." And guess what? She got rid of all of them. How handy. Her answers only made her look more guilty. I told her I needed to ponder and went to bed early. I closed the bedroom door so she couldn't follow me upstairs. Spent another night without sleep, wondering how long this had been going on and what else she might be lying about. The next day, she tried to seem like everything was back to normal. Made coffee, asked me what I was going to do that day, the usual thing, but I could see the panic in her eyes. She knows I don't trust her, and she's probably trying to think of what to do next. I can't keep lying that everything is good. I know what I heard over dinner on Sunday and how she's been acting since then. The fact that they wouldn't take the DNA test made it clear to me. People that are innocent don't do things like that. It's time to learn more about this James person. Serena certainly knows everything because Tyler heard her talk about it. I think it's time to go to her and get some actual answers. Serena's apartment complex is roughly 45 minutes away from here, near the campus. I knew she'd be there because she does social media marketing for small businesses from home. I had time to think about how I wanted to do this on the drive. I couldn't just show there and start blaming her for things. I wanted actual answers too. She appeared really astonished to see me when she opened the door. "What are you doing here, Harry?" I could see right away that she was nervous. She kept gazing behind me, as if she were checking to see if anyone else was there. Someone who had nothing to hide would not have reacted this way. "Serena, I suppose you know why I'm here." She allowed me in, but she was behaving all jumpy. They didn't actually look me in the eye. Her flat was relatively normal for someone in their late 20s. There was IKEA furniture, motivational quotations on the walls, and a pile of self-help books on the coffee table. We were the only ones there because Tyler was at school. I sat down on the couch, and before she could start talking, I took out my phone and started the audio recorder app. I didn't tell her I was filming, of course. I just put it on the coffee table face down, as if I were putting it away. I asked her right away what Tyler said about James during supper on Sunday. I told her I needed to know the truth. She quickly slipped into denial. She started stating she didn't understand what I was saying and that Tyler says a lot of weird things. Kids have very active imaginations. But her body language was giving her away entirely. She was moving her hands about, couldn't stay still. They kept staring at everything but me. When Tyler said it, I told her I could see her face. It seemed like she wanted to crawl under the table. She tried to stick to her story for a few more minutes, but I continued pushing. I told her I suspected something was up and that Addison had virtually admitted it by not taking a DNA test. That appeared to make her even more upset. Then she eventually lost it, cried, and said she was sorry. She had told Addison she needed to come clean, but Addison said she would take care of it. When I pushed her to be more specific, she told me about James, who was Addison's ex from before we got together. She said they hooked up a few months ago when I was away at a conference. When she said it, my stomach fell. I remembered that conference quite well. It happened in February and lasted 4 days in Atlanta. I really felt horrible about leaving Addison alone for that long, especially because we were trying to become pregnant. She stated she was looking forward to some time alone to relax and catch up on her shows. She was actually hanging out with her ex-boyfriend. When I asked her whether she was pregnant with his baby, Serena nodded and cried even more. She added that Addison told her she was terrified to tell me because we'd been trying for so long and I was so happy when she told me she was pregnant. The timeline made perfect sense. We had been trying for more than a year without success. Then I leave town for 4 days in February, and all of a sudden, she's pregnant in March. I was so thrilled that I didn't even think about when it would happen. Serena said that Addison told her she would figure something out. Find a way to do it. You could lie to me for the rest of my life and let me raise another man's child without knowing. I was becoming angry, but I had to obtain all the information first. She said she had known about it since Addison initially told her she was pregnant. One night, Addison came over distraught and said she had made a big mistake and didn't know what to do. Addison continued insisting she couldn't tell me the truth, even though Serena told her she had to. I inquired if she just went along with it, and Serena said she didn't know what to do. Addison is her cousin. They were friends as kids, but she hated it. That's why she hadn't been spending time with her family lately. She hated seeing me so happy about the baby when she knew the truth. She stopped talking, but I got the idea. People always talk about how happy I am to be a dad. I buy baby things, read parenting books, and speak about names, even if the baby isn't mine. At this point, the recording had been going on for about 20 minutes, and I had all I needed. Serena was still crying and said she was sorry over and over again for not telling me sooner. I felt awful for her since it was evident that she was split between being loyal to her cousin and doing the right thing. But ultimately, I was just outraged that someone had been lying to me for months. Sorry, Harry. I should have told you right immediately. Yes, you should have. I took my phone and fled. As I walked out, Serena was still saying sorry, but I was done listening. I had all I needed on that tape, and now it was time to go home and tell my wife the truth about her lies. It was strange to drive home. I was glad to finally know what was actually going on. But basically, I just felt numb, like everything that had happened in my relationship had been a lie and I was only now seeing it clearly. It's time to put an end to this act once and for all. When I got there, Addison's car was still in the driveway. She was undoubtedly wondering where I'd been all morning because I told her I was running errands, but I had been gone for about 4 hours. I sat in my car for a few minutes trying to decide what to do about this. Should I just play the recording straight now, or should I try to get her to admit it first? When I walked into the house, it felt different, like I was seeing things for the first time. It all felt like props in a big lie. The baby gear we'd bought together, the pregnancy literature on the coffee table, and the ultrasound photographs on the fridge. When I walked in, Addison was in the kitchen fixing lunch. When she heard me, she looked up, and I could see that she was worried. She was undoubtedly worrying all morning about what I was doing and if I was talking to someone about supper on Sunday. She said, "How were your errands?" in a casual way. I sat down at the kitchen table and looked at her for a minute. She was putting together a sandwich, but her hands were shaking and moving in a jerky way. She kept looking at me like she was waiting for me to say something. It was clear that she felt guilty. Finally, I said, "We need to talk." She got tense all over. "About what?" I asked as I pulled out my phone and put it on the table. "This morning I went to see Serena." Her face went pale right away. She dropped the knife she was holding and just stared at me. "What?" I recorded our whole conversation. "Do you want to hear it?" She shook her head before I could even finish the statement. "Harry, whatever she said to you, she told me about James in February when I was at that conference and how you've been lying to me for months. That's when she really lost it. She started crying and saying she could explain that it wasn't what I believed, but I had heard enough excuses and falsehoods in the preceding few days." I pushed play on the tape. It was certainly one of the strangest things that ever happened to me to hear Serena's voice fill our kitchen. Hearing her talk about how Addison had an affair, how the kid wasn't mine, and how she'd been keeping this secret for months. Addison just stood there crying while her cousin spoke things that made everything clear. The kitchen was completely quiet once the recording stopped, except for Addison's crying. I gazed at her and waited. What could she possibly say at this point? Her cousin had recorded the whole timeline on tape. "Serena's lying," she finally murmured through her tears. "She's always been jealous of me, of what we have. She's trying to break us up." I almost laughed. "So Serena made up this elaborate story about you cheating with your ex. She invented this whole thing about James just to hurt you." Addison nodded desperately. "Yes, she's never liked you, Harry. She thinks I settled when I married you." But even as she was saying it, I could see she didn't believe it herself. The story was falling apart and we both knew it. I asked her why Serena would know so many details about James if she was just making it up. How would she know about the conference timing? About Addison reaching out to him first? About him not wanting anything to do with the baby? That's when something shifted in Addison's face. Like she realized there was no point in lying anymore. She slumped against the kitchen counter and looked defeated. "Okay," she said quietly. "Yes, you're not the father." Finally, after days of lies and manipulation and gaslighting, she was admitting the truth. But instead of feeling relieved, I just felt empty, like something had died inside me. "So, what's your plan now?" "What do you mean?" I asked her. She seemed bewildered. "I mean, what did you expect was going to happen? You were just going to let me raise James' kid for 18 years and never tell me?" "Harry, please, it's not like that." She started talking about how she panicked when she found out she was pregnant. How James made it clear he wanted nothing to do with fatherhood. How she thought about getting an abortion but couldn't go through with it. How she realized I would be a better father than James ever could be. "You wanted a baby so badly and you'll be such a good father." The audacity was unbelievable. She was trying to frame this like she was doing me some kind of favor. Like I should be grateful she chose me to be the unknowing stepfather to her affair baby. I asked her how she could live with herself watching me get excited about doctor's appointments and buying baby furniture and planning for our future when she knew it was all based on a lie. She just kept crying and saying she was sorry, that she never meant for it to go this far. When were you planning to tell me? Ever? I don't know. Maybe when the baby was older. Maybe never. I thought maybe it wouldn't matter by then. Wouldn't matter. Like finding out your kid isn't actually yours becomes less devastating over time. Like I'd be so attached to some other guy's child that I wouldn't care about being deceived. I told her I wanted her to pack her things and leave, that I was done with the lies and manipulation. She immediately started begging, saying we could work through this, that she loved me and wanted to save our marriage. You should have thought about that before you spread your legs for your ex. She flinched when I said it, but I was past caring about her feelings. She'd had months to consider my feelings and chose to lie instead. The conversation went on for another hour with her, alternating between begging for forgiveness and trying to justify what she'd done. She kept saying it was just one mistake, that she'd been confused and emotional. But it wasn't one mistake. It was a series of calculated decisions. Reaching out to James, meeting him while I was gone, sleeping with him, lying about the pregnancy, letting me believe I was going to be a father. Each step was a choice she made. By the end, she was practically hysterical, promising she'd do anything to fix this. But some things can't be fixed. Trust once broken like this doesn't come back. I told her to pack her essential stuff and that we'd figure out the rest later through lawyers. She's staying at her parents' house now. My phone's been buzzing all afternoon with texts from her, but I haven't read them. Don't really see the point. Nothing she can say will change what she did. The house feels strange being empty. All her stuff is still here, but it feels hollow somehow. I keep looking at the baby things we bought and wondering what I'm supposed to do with them now. Guess I'll be returning a lot of stuff to Target this weekend. Wednesday morning, I called one of my friends who went through a nasty divorce about 2 years ago. He gave me the name of his lawyer. Said the guy was expensive but worth every penny. Made an appointment for that afternoon and spent the morning gathering documents. Bank statements, mortgage papers, tax returns, all that fun stuff you need when your life implodes. I laid out the whole situation for him, the affair, the pregnancy, the months of lies. Showed him the recording of Serena's confession, which he said was gold. In our state, you can record conversations as long as one party consents, so it would be admissible if needed. Best news was that since we'd only been married 3 years and the house was mine before we got married, things should be pretty straightforward. No kids together, no major shared assets. Addison had quit her job to be a stay-at-home wife, but that was her choice. And we weren't married long enough for alimony to be a major issue. The affair actually works in your favor, the lawyer said, especially with the pregnancy deception. Shows a pattern of dishonesty that goes beyond a simple indiscretion. He said he could have papers drawn up by Friday and that we should move fast before Addison had time to get her own lawyer and start making demands. The whole consultation took about an hour and cost me $500, but it was worth it to know I had a plan. I also changed the locks on the house, which felt petty but necessary. Addison still had her key and I didn't want her showing up whenever she felt like it. Called my bank to remove her from our joint checking account. Canceled her credit card that was linked to my account. Started separating our financial lives piece by piece. Also went to see my doctor to get tested for STDs. Not something I thought I'd ever need to worry about in my marriage, but here we are. If she was sleeping with James, who knows what else she might have been doing. The nurse who took my blood looked sympathetic when I explained why I needed the full panel. Probably sees this more often than I'd like to think. My phone had been buzzing constantly with texts from Addison. Stuff like, "Please can we talk?" And "I love you so much and don't throw away our marriage." I read the first few then stopped. Nothing she could say would change anything at this point. Actions have consequences and she was about to learn that the hard way. Friday afternoon, my lawyer called to say the papers were ready. Drove over to pick them up and spent a few minutes reviewing everything. Petition for dissolution of marriage citing irreconcilable differences and adultery. Request for exclusive possession of the marital home. Division of assets. The whole legal framework for ending what I thought was going to be the rest of my life. Got home around 400 p.m. planning to just relax for the weekend and figure out my next steps. Maybe call some friends, catch up on sleep, start processing everything that had happened. But when I pulled into my driveway, Addison's car was there along with another car I recognized as her parents. They were standing on my front porch. Addison must have tried to use her key and realized the locks had been changed. When I got out of my car, her father walked over to me. Addison looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were red and puffy. Hair was a mess. Her parents looked uncomfortable but determined. This was obviously some kind of intervention they'd planned. Her father stood up when I came in. "Harry, we need to talk about this situation." "What situation is that?" "Addison made a mistake, but that doesn't mean you should destroy your marriage over it." I sat down across from them and just listened as they launched into their prepared speech. Addison was young and confused. Everyone makes mistakes. Marriage is about forgiveness and working through problems together. She loves me and wants to make this right. All the standard talking points you'd expect from parents trying to save their daughter's marriage. Her mother chimed in about how Addison had been crying for days. How she realized what a terrible mistake she'd made. How she was willing to do anything to earn my trust back. They talked about counseling and fresh starts and the importance of not giving up when things get difficult. I let them finish, then asked her dad a simple question. "If your wife was pregnant with another man's baby and had been lying to you about it for months, would you stay with her?" He went quiet for a minute. You could see him trying to work out how to answer that without admitting he'd do exactly what I was doing. "That's different," her mother said. "We've been married for 30 years. You two are just starting out." "It's not different at all. The only difference is you've had more time to build something worth saving. We've been together 5 years, and she threw it all away for one night with her ex." They kept pushing, talking about the baby needing a father figure, about how I'd already bonded with the idea of being a dad, trying to guilt me into accepting that my role in this kid's life should be as the unknowing stepfather to my wife's affair baby. "She chose you, Harry," her dad said, "not him, you. She chose me to be her meal ticket, to raise another man's child without knowing it. That's not love. That's manipulation." The conversation went on for about an hour with them getting more desperate as they realized I wasn't budging. Addison barely said anything, just sat there crying while her parents tried to fix her mess. At one point, she asked if we could talk privately, but I told her we were past that. Finally, I'd heard enough. Told them this wasn't a negotiation, and my decision was final. Said they had every right to support their daughter, but they needed to do it somewhere else. Her dad looked like he wanted to argue more, but his wife pulled him toward the door. Addison was the last to leave. She stopped at the door and looked back at me. "I really do love you, Harry." "No, you don't. If you loved me, you never would have done this." After they left, I sat on the couch thinking about how much my life had changed in less than a week. This time last Friday, I was a happily married guy, looking forward to becoming a father. Now I was about to be divorced and had to start over completely. But for the first time since this whole thing started, I felt like I was in control again. No more lies, no more manipulation, no more wondering what was real. Just the truth and the consequences that come with it. It's been 3 weeks since I served Addison the divorce papers and kicked her parents out of my house. I'm doing better than expected, and karma has a twisted sense of humor. The divorce process has been moving pretty smoothly. Addison hired some bargain basement lawyer she found online who clearly doesn't know what he's doing. My lawyer has been running circles around him. She tried to claim she was entitled to half the house value since we'd been paying the mortgage together during our marriage, but that fell apart pretty quick when we showed she hadn't been working for the past year. Hard to claim you contributed to mortgage payments when you had no income. She also tried to go after my retirement account and some other assets, claiming they'd grown during our marriage, so she deserved a share. But again, being unemployed by choice and committing adultery kind of killed her negotiating position. Her lawyer kept pushing for a settlement conference, but my lawyer advised against it. Why negotiate when we're already winning? The most ridiculous part was when she tried to claim she deserved spousal support because she'd given up her career to focus on starting a family. Gave up her career to cheat on me. More like it. Her lawyer actually argued that she was now a single mother who needed financial assistance. My lawyer shut that down real quick by pointing out that she could get child support from the actual father if she wanted financial help raising his kid. Got the STD test results back and thankfully everything came back clean. Was worried about that for a few days because who knows what James might have been carrying. One less thing to stress about, I guess. Been staying busy with work and started going to the gym again. Haven't been sleeping great, but that's probably normal when your entire life gets turned upside down. My coworker Dave has been checking on me, making sure I'm eating and not drinking too much. Good guy. Haven't told many people the details of what happened. Just said we were getting divorced due to irreconcilable differences. Most people don't need to know the whole sordid story. The house feels different now, better in some ways, lonelier in others. I've been slowly getting rid of reminders of Addison and our old life together. Donated all the baby stuff we bought to a women's shelter. Figured someone could actually use it instead of having it sit in my spare room mocking me. Took down all the pictures of us from the walls. Threw away the pregnancy books and baby name lists we'd made together. Found some stuff of hers she'd left behind when she packed in a hurry that first day. Boxed it all up and dropped it off at her parents' house when I knew they wouldn't be home. Just left it on the porch with a note. Didn't want any more face-to-face conversations about second chances and forgiveness. Speaking of her parents, her mom called me about a week ago asking if I'd reconsider. Said Addison was a mess and really regretted what she'd done. I told her that was between Addison and her therapist. Not my problem anymore. Haven't heard from them since. Addison herself has stopped texting me constantly, which is a relief. The first week after she moved out, my phone was buzzing every few hours with long messages about how sorry she was and how much she loved me. I never responded to any of them. Eventually, she got the hint that I wasn't interested in her apologies. But here's where things get interesting. Remember James, the ex who knocked her up and wanted nothing to do with the baby? Well, apparently he's been having second thoughts. Found this out through the grapevine. My friend's wife is friends with someone who knows Serena. Small world and all that. Turns out James reached out to Addison about 2 weeks ago. Not because he suddenly wants to play house, but because his parents found out about the situation and are pressuring him to step up. Apparently, they're pretty religious and weren't happy to learn their son got someone pregnant and then bailed. They've been guilting him about responsibility and doing the right thing. So now James is talking about wanting to be involved in the kid's life. Wants to do DNA tests to confirm paternity, discuss custody arrangements, the whole thing. Which is hilarious because this is exactly what Addison was trying to avoid by lying to me. She wanted a stable father figure who wouldn't complicate her life with custody battles and shared parenting duties. Instead, she's about to be a single mom dealing with an ex who will probably want the kid every other weekend and 2 weeks in the summer. Plus, his parents who sound like the type to have strong opinions about how their grandchild should be raised. She played herself completely. The best part, James apparently has a decent job in finance and will likely be on the hook for substantial child support payments. So Addison's going to get way less money than she would have if she'd just been honest with me from the beginning and we'd worked out some kind of co-parenting arrangement. Instead, she gets to be a broke single mom living with her parents while paying lawyer fees she can't afford. I'm not celebrating her misery or anything, but there's definitely some poetic justice in how this all worked out. She made calculated decisions to lie and cheat and manipulate, and now she's dealing with the consequences of those choices. As for me, I'm doing okay. Some days are harder than others, but I'm sleeping better, knowing I'm not living a lie anymore. Been thinking about maybe getting back into dating eventually, but not anytime soon. Need to process all this stuff first and figure out who I am as a single guy.